Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel. Together, we're going to be diving into some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. People who've maybe pushed their bodies, their mindsets, or maybe society's paradigms. So you're going to find yourself maybe wanting to laugh, cry, or even be inspired. We would invite you to share, like, and subscribe, to sign up for our newsletter as well on activateandilluminate.com. Now, just keep in mind that this information that you are going to hear is informational and educational for entertainment purposes only. This does not constitute professional advice of any kind. The views expressed are those of myself and guests only. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional and legal advice regarding their own situations. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for being here. Welcome, Alexei. And I maybe just start by sharing a little bit about how you grew up, what your everyday life looked like, and then we'll get into more of what's been happening for you.
Yeah, so I'll start it off by saying abolished it. Good day, everyone. I just want to say grateful for this day, for you having me on your podcast. But yeah, my name's Alexei Fastlightning, and I grew up on the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation. So it's Treaty 6. It's about 45 minutes northwest of Edmonton, Alberta. And I have, what do I have? I have like 10 siblings. So my childhood is kind of like slowly stacking up because I was right in the middle. So I'm a middle child. I have 10 siblings. I grew up out here on the res. And for the most part, I'd say I've experienced and I've witnessed, and I'm always like an analyzer. I think I was an analyzer since a young age. So I was always looking at patterns around me and recognizing patterns. And then how can I stop those patterns, or how can I do something to mitigate those patterns? And so for me, growing up on the res was a culture shock when I finally stepped out of those unhealthy habits and thought patterns and thought processes and actions at that. So for me, the big thing about growing up on the res is it's a constraint. It's a mental constraint. And it's almost like a bubble, and it's an illusion. And we all have this bubble in our heads of what this place is, what comes from this place, what doesn't come from this place, what it's filled with, what it isn't filled with. And there's this narrative built around it where we are consistently and constantly telling ourselves the story of almost self-destruction and victimization and limitation, right? And so for me, growing up on the res, I have two loving parents. They raised me, I'd say, exceptional. And yeah, I mean, I experienced a lot as a kid. I have a lot of siblings we have different mothers. So that was also something I had to deal with growing up as a kid, right? My family breaking apart. But I didn't necessarily, well, from what I could remember, I don't necessarily grew up in an attic household of both parents, or my parents tried their best to give us the best life that they could. And family ended up kind of breaking apart when I was like 12, 13 years old. And that was kind of a big one for me because I had this illusion in my head that, I was going to live this happily ever after with both my parents. And I was going to, do something maybe, right? And we're going to have all these family trips and, just those things you paint in your head as a kid of living like the happily ever after, right? And just nothing but goodness. But come to find out, I would take a 180 turn when I was like 13, 14. And then that's when also, the anxiety started creeping in. And that was one of the biggest, if not the biggest battle I've ever dealt with in my life. And it's something I like vocalizing. And like you said, we started the documentation process. I call it a living archive of the pursuit, and it's from the res to the world. And I made the decision to start that journey on January 1st this year. Actually, I'm probably like 2 days before January 1st. I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I did almost like a self-analysis, like an audit. I sat down with myself in deep reflection and deep analysis, and I wrote down this exact prompt, and I have it saved on my laptop. I said, what would it look like this year if I emptied the tank, if I gave it everything I had, if I put it all on the line, if I just put all my cards and all my chips in the stack. And that was one of the things I said I wanted to start a daily documentation journey, just because with my clothing brand, I would do headshot talking videos like so, and they would get really, really good feedback. Like a lot of people would engage with them. And so for me, I was like, okay, how can I take that away from my clothing brand and actually make it its own thing? So it's not almost like like a sub or a byproduct of my brand. So I made a commitment to upload every single day this year. Um, and when I started out, I was just thinking about this mountain of uploads. I'm like, okay, we got to come up with 365 different video ideas. And how are we going to do this? And, just the procrastinations that fill your mind when you try to strive for something or do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do, right? When you try to
Mhm.
take a risk, right? And just swing at the ball. And so I guess for me, the best example I could give to kids or to people is just you just got to step on the mount, right? And you just got to keep swinging. And people may laugh at you, people may criticize you, right? You may miss, you may fail, you may look funny, but at the end of the day, the voice in your head, that's the only critic that really matters, right?
Mhm.
And so that's a documentation journey, and I just wanted to give the kids the raw, authentic process of what it takes to, I wouldn't say achieve a goal, but the actual process it takes to become a person who is capable of you know living out that goal, right? And it's
Mhm.
obviously there's a process, there's steps, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And so I wanted to give them the day by day process because there's almost like a theme within social culture where it's like you can make it, believe in yourself, don't give up, and they keep regurgitating the same lines, and it's like the kids don't understand the actual process. So if they don't understand the actual process, and how are they ever going to change? And I'm speaking from experience here. I was a kid that didn't understand the process. I watched motivational videos. Like I would sit there when I got my iPod when I was like 14 years old, 15 years old, and I would watch the motivational videos, right? Believe, don't give up, work hard. But I never actually understood the process and the little, how would you say it? The little tangibles and intangibles that go towards chasing a goal, chasing a dream, and almost like the habit stacking and shedding your old identity and forming a new one. And so that's what the documentation journey is for. I want kids to be able to come to a video and maybe take a piece of it. And I'm not even saying those videos that I upload every single day is the right piece of information, right? The right thing, the truth. Um, Watch the videos, take what you want, maybe even, give me some constructive criticism because I just like sharing my opinion, right? And for the most part, I'd say it's doing good things, and it's good to see. But like anything, there's always the naysayers, the people that are projecting and trying to pull you down to their level. So there's always those strings tugging on me for sure. But yeah, I just, I hope that my hopes is that that documentation journey, even after this year, I'll probably still continue it. It's just the day by day process. I hope it inspires kids to take a risk, right? Especially from these places, reserves, right? It's very minimal risks are taken, right? And if they are taken, people usually have to venture outside of the reserve, right? We're filming this video and I'm sitting at my mom's house on the reserve, right? 2 years ago, where I started, my first business, not knowing where it was going to bring me or what I was going to do in, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. So it just goes to show that it's all up here. And that's what I
Yeah.
want the kids to understand. It's all up here, right?
So what as a young kid, what did you think your life would look like? Like what were your expectations for your life?
Yeah. I struggled a lot with self-worth. I had low self-esteem. Um, I was put in sports, like I was put in hockey, I was put in extracurriculars. Um, but I always felt like I was the black sheep. I felt like I was away from the crowd, like I was different in a sense.
Mhm.
And not even different in a good way. I felt like it was a bad thing, the way I was
Mhm.
different. And so in school, I dealt with like bullying and stuff here and there. And then in hockey, I dealt with a lot of that as well. And I wasn't the best at hockey as either. And I was criticized a lot. And, I had high expectations, not of my own, but, you know, my father had high expectations of us in sports. And so he didn't really take the healthiest approach in terms of, you know, the kids want to have fun, right? And
Yeah.
so my father was like, my father was like, I want you to be the best, like he had these expectations of us when we made mistakes. He would, show a little bit of frustration and anger. And then my mom was the other side of the scale. And she was like, just have fun, you're a kid, make memories, enjoy like that. But for the most part, I don't really think I had a visualization of dreams. And I'm saying that from an honest perspective. I didn't really have dreams because I came from, like I said, a limited perception environment and household, right? My dad actually started his own business when I was like maybe 13. And then it kind of went a little like downhill and stuff like that. I got a glimpse maybe of that, of business and those kinds of things. But other than that, I didn't really have dreams for my life of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, who I could be. For me, it was like, I just wanted to live out that day and how could I experience that day? And I grew up in the era before like TikTok and I think I was like the last generation to grow up before all that social media spur. Like I didn't have an iPod or whatever till I was like 15 or something, 14. So I grew up outside on the res a lot, which I'm grateful for because it
Yeah.
taught me to just that's the real life, right? That's the good
Yeah.
life,
The
and
connected life.
exactly. And like my mom and my dad and my grandma, I think I've heard this advice from all of them. It's that damn phone. And that's exactly what they said to me when, I had anxiety. It's the screen, it's the screen. Even my family doctor told me that. So, come to find out, it did have a lot to do with the screen. But yeah,
Mhm.
for the most part, growing up, I couldn't really tell you that I had dreams. To be honest, I mean, I kind of just was floating, right? Like most kids do. You just float and you just accept what you have, and then that's that. You go with the flow, but there wasn't really no hunger or drive or fire in my spirit to wanna pursue something or be ambitious. It was always like the flame was like this tiny, and it was
So
only, you know, that tiny, like, it couldn't there was the environment didn't, like wasn't sustainable for that flame to actually grow. It was just that tiny, and so, for me, it wasn't really dreams, but it also wasn't necessarily like, you know, the storm, right? I was kind of, like, in between. I guess if I could put it.
when did it change? What allowed you to see those dreams or to go for those?
Um, I think the one dream that kind of came about was this is kind of a story I share with the kids when I go speak at keynotes because they engage with it. So this video game came out and it was called Fortnite. I'm sure you probably seen it. So when that
Yeah,
video game came out, that was like the first game that I like full on like played and like got
yeah.
like, I was like obsessed with it. I kind of developed a gaming addiction with that. And for me, um, I became so obsessed with that video game and I was actually really bad at it. Like I was really bad when I first played and everyone was like, they would like criticize me and laugh at me and nobody wanted to play with me. So um, I think I got a glimpse of my determination with that game because like I think I spent like 3 months just playing by myself practicing and then next thing you know I came out and I'm like just levels above everyone and everyone wants to play with me now and then I'm also playing tournaments and stuff like that so I got a glimpse of my dreams during that era of gaming because like I was competing and I was almost there like I was literally like a step away from in all honesty like making money from that game. There were certain restrictions and limitations on me but um, for the most part I think that's when an actual spark in my head that showed me okay, you wanted to be better. You did the actual actions and committed every day to be better, and you are better. And so you almost bear witness to your own efforts, right? You almost bear
Mhm,
witness to your own commitment. Um, so that's when I got like the first glimpse of belief in myself with anything, because I was
mhm.
good at something, and people told me I was good at something, and I was never used to that. And so from there, um, come to find out, like that game would end up shooting me down a spiral of anxiety and depression. So during COVID, and and then I kind of went down this turmoil of just trials and tribulations with my mental health and my mind. And this just goes to show it could happen to anyone, right? I have a roof over my head, right? There's food in the fridge, right? I have a sober mother that I'm living with, right? I have little siblings, right? My older brother lives with us, and we're out on the res and it's calm, quiet. It was during COVID, and it still hit me like a brick wall. I could remember the day and I could depict the exact day, the exact moment of what I felt. And it wasn't a good place. Like it was I never thought I would get out of that place like most people do, right? Most people that deal with the depths of depression, anxiety, they never think there's a way out, right? You can't
Mhm.
see it when you're down there. And so for me, it was a scary place because I've never dealt with it. Like I dealt with anxiety on and off. I used to have panic attacks like on and off, but that was like just a tornado of panic attacks. And also that it's like after I have the panic attacks, I'm like depressed, and then it's just it's just an endless loop, and you just stay in that cycle, and it's not good. And I was using the game to cope with it, and funny enough, the more I played the game, the more anxiety I got, and then the deeper the depression got, and so on and so forth. And it was almost like I was running. I was running
Mhm.
from the very thing that would set me free, and I was running at it. And in hindsight, looking back now, if I could go back, I would run on it 10 times faster, 20 times faster. I really wish I did, but you live and you learn, and um, I did it, and it's better, late than never, right? And so um, that was obviously a big one for me, and my beliefs shattered completely. My grandma was really a key instrumental role in bringing back the light and my spark. Her alongside my little siblings, and I share this story. It's when I thought about the moment of and this is something like I openly share when I speak, when I thought of the moment of the possibility of me not being here, right? Of me not being here, me not making it to the next day, me um, making my journey, right? And honestly, there was a moment where I didn't want to be here. I think it was like 18. I think it was 18 or 19. I didn't want to be here. And no one knew that. It was just me sitting there contemplating my life. And I just visualized my little siblings. Like I just visualized leaving them and what that would look like, how they would feel, right? I was just trying to emotionally understand what that would do to them. And so that was also one of the big factors. I just looked at my little siblings, and I had to pull through. And not only that, my grandma was just really adamant. So when I went to her house, she had me literally just doing like yard work and then cleaning her basement. I was just staying off the screen. And she was just praying every morning with me every night, and just praying and praying and praying. And so she kind of really brought me back to praying, and to my faith. And I feel like I really lost that, and that wasn't something that was really like in my day-to-day life. So that was a really really transformational time of my life, looking back. And yeah, I think after that moment, um, I started living again. Like I started going golfing. I started doing things again. I started exploring. I started, started scootering around downtown. I just started like just doing things, just trying to like just live a little again. And then, like you ask, when did that finally snap? That belief, right? And so it was probably I think it was 2024. So it's 2 years ago now. So it's July 15th. So it's 2 years ago, roughly 25 months ago, 25, 26 months ago. I had this wicked idea in my head. And I told you, I said, a lot of people, they have this mental constraint of the reserve, right? And it's just a story we tell ourselves of nothing can come from this place. You have to leave this place for something to come to fruition to life. And so what I told myself, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cut all like the bullshit, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
walk a path that, you know, I don't think many people have dared to walk, right? Of to pursue a dream, but to actively pursue a dream from this place, right? And I knew there was gonna be strings on me. I knew there was gonna be a lot of roadblocks. And so I wrote it down in my journal, and I said, what do we want to do? Who do we want to be? What can we do? What are we good at? And so you just do the analyzation. And I like designing. Like I always like bringing things to life. I'd say that's one thing I really enjoy doing. Like when you have a Lego set and you put the pieces together and you see it come to life, or when you do a puzzle and you finish the puzzle, or when you are in a coloring book and you do all the color patterns and you follow the numbers, and then it comes to life and you can see the
Yeah.
visualization, and even like the arts and crafts aspect too. So for me, I always like bringing things to life. And so I kind of landed on to build a clothing brand, right? And I like fashion, I like, shopping and stuff like that. So I'm like, why not create my own thing? Not only that, document the day by day process and showing the kids that, step one to then step 100, and they get all the steps in between, not just step one and then step 100, believe in yourself, you could do it, right? They had all the, documentations of the journey. And so that was about 25 months ago. How do I go from printing shirts downstairs 25 months ago to, you know, now my app's ready to launch, and I coded also a software that I want to launch across all the nations across the island, as well as, I own 2 more businesses. So it's just, I couldn't tell you, like, I actually couldn't tell you that I planned any of this. The only one thing that was made a conviction in my mind was to see it through. That's the only non-negotiable I gave myself. I said, we are going to see it through, regardless of how we feel, regardless of what stands in the way, regardless of what resources we have, regardless of, who's with us or not. If I get laughed at, if I get criticized, if people call me a failure, and there's just so many things, that were trying to procrastinate me out of not doing it, of conforming to, the environmental standards of this place. And yeah, my belief started 25 months ago, really. And in that moment, I would emotionally supercharge myself into, what did it feel like to ship orders all across Canada and the USA? What did it feel like to build businesses? What did it feel like to speak in front of kids and to share the story? What did it feel like when you, walk into the airports and you're flying to, an isolated community? And what does it feel like when those kids come up to you and say, I want to do this. I want to go after my dreams. This is what I want to do with my life. And, they open up, and you could almost feel like that cocoon start opening up. And it's like, okay, we're really doing something good here. So 25 months ago, if I could pinpoint the actual belief in myself and my capabilities, and obviously it was molded over the past 25 months. There was like days when I didn't want to do it, when I wanted to give up, when I just wanted to just hit the kill switch. Glad I didn't. Um, and for me, the one pulling and driving factors is the kids. That's the one real thing that always pulls me through in my darkest moments, and, the moments when I'm criticizing, and I have really, really high standards for myself. And, my mentor says it, that those aren't high standards. That's perfection. And so I have a hard time kind of taking my foot off the gas. But
Did,
yeah.
did you always have this goal of helping kids and being like, I've heard you mention the kids now quite a few times. Did
Mhm.
you always have that as a vision um of being a source of inspiration for them?
Yeah, that was why I started 25 months ago, right? It's because
Mhm.
25 months ago, I was unemployed. All I had was a high school diploma. I was still struggling with anxiety a little, and I didn't have anything going for me. Like, really, like, I was just you know, another kid on the res, just floating, right? Like I said. And so for me, growing up, and it ties into my life, like growing up when I didn't have the self-belief, right? When I was criticized for not being the best at certain things, when I felt like the odd one out, when dreams weren't even a thing that existed up here. It wasn't even a possibility in my mind. And not only that, but I know there's kids that are also going through those episodes of anxiety, depression, and existential crisis, where they're questioning their life, and where they're going to go, where they're going to end up, and just almost a mental suppression of dreams. And so for me, it was always about the kids. I made it known from the very first, you know, video that I uploaded 25 months ago. I said, this is for the kids. I just want to show the kids that it can happen, but it can only happen if you work hard, if you have a game plan, if you execute that game plan every single day. And for me, I'm not worried about the results. I'm just worried about, number one, how hard can I work every single day? Can I step on the gas every single day and leave it all on the line? And then number two, do it for the kids. So as long as you do something good, an act of good service for the kids, and that really does serve me, I'll never be unsatisfied or unfulfilled, right? And so it was always about the kids for me because once upon a time I was that kid. I was that kid with no self-belief. I was that kid with anxiety, right? With panicking, like couldn't even be alone, you know? So how do I go from not being able to sit by myself alone, you know, at my mom's house or my, you know, when I was in the city at my dad's house to being in, you know, 6,000 miles away on top of one of the highest points in Switzerland on a solo trip by myself. And these are like, I say this and I smile because it's a transformational journey and it's an amazing feeling when you're standing, you know, a couple thousand meters up by yourself across the world. And the one thing that came to my mind in that moment was, I don't know how we got here. I remember looking over the mountaintop and I was like, I I couldn't tell you how I got here. Like I in that moment I visualized, you know, when I was struggling with anxiety, when I couldn't leave my bedroom. That's what I visualized in that moment. I'm like, no, we did it. We bared witness to our own efforts, our own commitment, our own ability to withstand uncertainty and discomfort. And that's what I always wanted to prove because if I proved it to myself indirectly when I documented the journey, I'll prove it to the kids. And that's what I want them to see.
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
So if you could say, like, what, when you talk about this anxiety and you talk about being in your room by yourself, in that moment, what are some of the things that you slowly started doing to step out of it, where then you were able to see the big picture?
I'd say when you're in those moments, um, you're conformed to a bubble, right? It's almost like you're looking through the world through a tiny, tiny keyhole. And so for me, that's what it was. I was looking through a keyhole, right? And funny enough, we are the only individuals that can widen that keyhole to us. And I'm faithful. Like I pray every morning and every night. Like I sit there for, you know, 30 seconds to a minute. I just pray. I just give thanks. And for me, I strongly do believe that, you know, Waka, which means creator in my language, is he's always going to be there, but he can't grab your hand and pull you, right? His hand's there. You got to grab it. And so I never grabbed it, right? And his hand was always there. I just never grabbed it. Or I never understood that it was there and realized I could grab it, that grabbing it was an option. And so it was just me trudging through the mud every single day, waiting for the light, like just waiting. Funny
Mhm.
enough, all I had to do was just grab that hand and have a little faith. And so some of those moments, those breakthrough moments for me was, it's the stepping stones. It's like business. It's like any transformational journey. It's a stepping stones, right? You don't go from step 1 to step 100, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you fail a little, adapt, adjust, then take step 5 again, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on and so forth. And so for me, it was just the little things. So leaving my room and then going outside. And then, you know, I couldn't even literally hop in a car. Like I was scared of just hopping in a car, driving down to my grandma's, which is 10 minutes away. And so it was doing those things. And I watched a lot of educational videos. And one of the things that he said was, you just got to sit through the discomfort, or you got to sit through the uncertainty. You got to be able to withstand it. Every time you know, bring this out, try to cope, try to run away, you're reinforcing those thought patterns and those beliefs that you can't regulate, that it's
Mhm.
scary. And because it's scary, it's not good. So stay away from it. Run away, run as fast as you can. Fight or flight goes on, right? And so for me, I understood that in order for me to get past that state of fear step by step, I would slowly need to stop negotiating with myself and step into the unknown, step into the anxiety. And it was just the baby steps for me. Like I just started stepping up to anxiety one step after the other. And I was on the verge of panicking a lot of times, like more times than people can understand or even fathom. Every single moment when I stepped up to that plate and I said, it's scary. I feel like I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel like I'm gonna go crazy and lose my mind.
Mhm.
We're gonna see it through. let's just see it through regardless of how we feel. And so it was the stepping stones, the little moments. And I'll tell you what, if I didn't hop in that car, and I could visualize the moment when I first hopped into a car. My brother actually said something to me. He doesn't know this, but I guess now he'll know this because of the interview. I told him, I was like, I can't hop in a car. Like he messaged me because they were trying to go to the casino, and I was like, I can't hop in a car. Like I just can't. Like mentally, I can't. Like I feel like I'm gonna freak out, panic, and like just conform and isolate and just be in a tiny shell. And so what he told me was, you just got to do it. Just do it. Just do it. That's what you got to do. And then from there, I just did it. And I was scared. I remember sitting in the back of that car on the way to the casino, and I was like kind of like, felt like I was in a cocoon in the back seat, like in this shell. And, I was like, I was like heaving and stuff like that. My heart rate was racing. My mind was like, I couldn't even process things. That's how fast my mind was moving. And so I was to pinpoint it, I'd say it's just one step after the other, right? If I didn't get in that car to go to the casino, maybe I'd still be, conformed by that. But that me getting in that car to go to that casino, even though I was scared, led to me walking through the terminal, hopping on that flight to Europe by myself. So it's the baby steps. They all add up.
What's your favorite book?
It's probably my most recent read. Actually, my second most recent read. It's called You're the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's the most amazing book. I'm going to read it again, honestly, this year. And I've read like a lot of books about transformational autobiographies, but that's one where I sat there and I'm like, okay, I know that I don't even know. And then there's possibilities that I can't even fathom to understand or to ingrain in my mental thought process and my mental thought patterns. And that book really changed me. Like that's one of the books, the very few books that I've read where I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow. And I'm like joyful, smiling, and actually intrigued. And it's just an amazing book. He goes in depth about, you are the placebo, and he just talks about people coming back from terminal illnesses, stage 4 diseases and healing themselves from all kinds of things with just the power of thought alone. And it just further reinforces my belief that you can do anything you set your mind to. And so that's my key takeaway from that book is the power of the mind is amazing. And we don't even fully understand it, right? But that book really helped nudge me even farther down the path of delusional self-belief and believing I can do something, I'm capable of doing something. And in that book, he also talks about, I want to touch base on this a little, talks about like limitations and thought patterns and, your genetic coding and genetic expression, just all kinds of things that are directly affected and within our communities. And when I say directly affected, I'm talking about like the limitation side of the genetics. And it's like our environments, they're so unhealthy and destructive, especially for reserves, right? In a sense, the reserves, like I call them the residential conditioning camps, because that's what those things were. They were conditioning camps for our genes, our mental, spiritual, our physical. And so that book, it really put things into perspective for me because, I kind of hit that switch already of changing my diet, changing, my thought patterns, changing my physical habits, right? Praying every morning, praying every night, trying to stay off this unless it has to do with work, right? And so he talks in depth about how people accept normal, even though the normal that we accept is like a living hell. And just because it's accepted from, society or the vast amount of people, right? We're going to be conformed by that. And we're going to accept that and say, okay, that's the truth without even questioning it. And so this is one thing I also share with the kids. I'm like, question everything, even question what I'm saying to you guys. Like, you got to question this, analyze it, take out the bits and pieces, and then implement them into your lives. And so within the reserve, there's so many patterns. And once you develop that pattern recognition trait, it just feels like it can't turn off. And so I'm like, everyone's like, unhealthy patterns, unhealthy dietary patterns, no one gets physical fitness within their lives, right? We don't have any like strain or tension. It's just conformity and comfort, right? Eat the comfort foods, watch a TV, right? Maybe do the same. Pretty much you just live in the same day on repeat every single day, the same loop. There's no environmental strings that are pulling on growth. Like there's none. It's crazy, and it's night and day. And I'm looking back now from when I was a kid. I'm like, okay, when I was eating the bowl of cereal in the morning with the orange juice, the processed orange juice, and I'm having crashes in the first 2 hours of school, and I'm sitting there like half asleep and tired, and I'm like, but my parents didn't know better, right? They were conformed by what their parents showed them, and it's just this survival state that it almost like it just gets passed down slowly, slowly, slowly till someone snaps, right?
Yeah.
And so what I really understood was I was the curator and creator of my life. And that's what I want the kids to understand. And so for me, I know I have the power to make decisions to either better my life or to destruct my life. And within that book, he literally tells you that. He says, at any time, you can believe anything you want to believe. The mind doesn't know how would you say it? The difference between something that's happening out here and something that's happening out here, something you visualize and you can emotionally supercharge. And it's crazy because my people don't understand that. We really don't. It's like, this happened to me, they did this to me, and you're just throwing the power out here, right? You're throwing the strings on these people, and you're tying the string around your waist and you're throwing it at them. And you're saying, okay, I'm this way because of him, because of her, because they did this, they weren't here for me. Oh, they did this to me. I didn't have this. This is the way I grew up. And you're just throwing all these strings out, and then you're just sitting there, and then they're dragging you, right? And you're throwing away your power, right? And so for me, I just never wanted to be one of those people that said, this is the way I am because of my parents, right? And I want the kids to understand that I've read so many books about transformational journeys, as well as, You're the Placebo, and now I'm reading, what is it? Becoming Supernatural. So Joe Dispenza's other book. So I'm reading that book, which I love. And it's just crazy. And that's why I want the kids to understand that it just has to click in your mind. You have to be the exception. Like, I'm the first person in my family to solo travel, and my parents don't even hop on planes. So, I was in my head, the thought of hopping on a plane, I used to get anxiety. Like, my chest used to tighten, my heart rate would go through the roof, my mind would go crazy. I would think about the plane crashing and all these things, just because that's what my parents told me. And so if I lived within those limitations and those ideologies that they passed down, well, I would have never taken any of the risks. And if I would have never taken any of the risks, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you here today, and it just goes to show that it's just the domino effect, right? One person that decides to make a different decision. And if I didn't change my diet, who knows if I would have had the productivity levels to execute at the level I'm executing. And so I just want the kids to understand that you have the power to make decisions. And the sooner and the faster you realize that, your life's going to change. And it's crazy how that works. You just have to first become aware, right? And that's the hardest part. That's the most difficult part. But after that, I don't think it gets harder.
You said something a little while ago. You said delusional self-belief. And I love that word, because you actually have to become almost delusional.
Yeah.
And it's such a different way from what we've been programmed to believe about her. Like, you actually have to get crazy about your future. You actually have to get crazy about what is possible. You have to get crazy about your dreams. And I that's the first time I've heard that spoken like that, delusional self-belief.
Yeah.
And tell me what that means to you.
Yeah, I think I just truly, truly do believe that you need delusional self-belief to succeed, right? And people are going to call you crazy. They will. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to brush it off. They might even throw just smart remarks at you. How's that thing going? But in their heads, they already know it's not going well right now. So the delusional belief was the game changer for me. And the delusional belief only works followed by the action you take. That's the only way it works. You could sit there all day and shout the affirmations in the mirror. You could write it down. You can go through the processes. And then you can go on your phone and scroll for 12 hours a day. And then you wake up, a year later and you're like, why hasn't anything changed, right? So for me, there wasn't any person or environmental factor that could alter my delusional belief. I told myself, this is what we're going after, and we're going to tunnel vision. Everything is noise. And so for me, that just means to step in the autonomy of your highest self. Because when you cross that barrier from limitation to delusional self-belief, possibility opens up, the synchronicities start happening all around you, right? It all starts with an idea that people are going to call crazy. You might even think it's crazy. I sound like a crazy person. I used to talk to myself, middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., just literally talking to myself. This is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to do it. This is the action we're going to take. This will happen. That's what I used to tell myself. This will happen. And then I would emotionally supercharge it as well, right? I would close my eyes. What does it feel like, right? And so for me, the delusional self-belief is, if not, probably the top 3 traits in my life, along with, I'd say, delusional self-belief, say focus, right? If you can't focus, I don't think you can complete a task. And then I'd say a relentless commitment, right? Committing every single day, right? If I'm tired or wake up on the wrong side of the bed, if I'm sick, if I have a headache, if I want to go have fun with friends, right? Okay, but the work needs to be done though, right? So delusional self-belief, I feel like it's the epitome of becoming the best version of yourself. And no one can give that to you. That's something you harness, you mold, and you slowly build it brick by brick. I just want the kids to know that it can happen. And the mind is more powerful than, we can even fathom.
Do you ever or have you ever felt guilty for having these feelings of grandeur over maybe what you've experienced prior?
Like guilt in the sense of would you say guilt in what context would you say? Give me a little bit more context.
When there isn't necessarily the same level of, I don't want to say success, but maybe just dreams and visions. Sometimes if people can't see what you're going for, I'm questioning whether or not you have any, or you had to battle any internal feelings of guilt towards going for something outside of that.
Yeah, it was when I was first starting out, I battled a lot of limiting thoughts, I had a lot of limitations. Like my mother used to say, I used to stay up all night and work, right, till 4 a.m. So I would sleep till maybe noon. She used to always say, why are you sleeping all day, and have these remarks and stuff like this. But no one knew what I was going after. Everyone was in their own bubble, and I'm in my own bubble.
Yeah.
And so when you're choosing to be exceptional, you have to become the exception, which then means you have to go down a path that not many people have dared to tread down. And it's gonna look crazy to them, right? Because it's not normal. And because it's not normal to them, it looks abnormal, right?
Yeah.
And so the abnormal then becomes, the crazy thing. And you're the crazy person all of a sudden. And what is he even doing? And everyone's just throwing these smart remarks at you. And it's just crazy. And I felt like I would say I felt like a little bit of guilt, of thinking that I'm gonna leave this all behind, right? Those are thoughts that I was thinking of. I used to visualize the basic and the small moments as a kid, and just being outside or playing with my little siblings. And I said, if we go for this, our life's gonna change exponentially. And so those are all moments I had where there was no going back. And it's scary because you really don't know where a journey is going to take you. All you can understand is that it's going to take you somewhere, and there's no timestamp on that destination. But for me, I think there was a little bit of guilt of pursuing something that people didn't understand, because I feel like they would. And this is just one thing that my elders shared me. When you're pursuing something of exceptional stature, right? When not many people pursue those things, there is going to be people that are going to try to drag you down, that are going to try to conform you to their fears. And I read this quote and he said, the people that criticize you for taking risks, they're only trying to criticize you for taking those risks because if they can pull you down to their level, then that's going to justify the decision they made. And the decision they made is to stay comfortable. So if they can pull you into the comfort zone, they're going to say, okay, I made the right call by being comfortable. If they can convince you to come down and conform to their identity. And so there's a lot of things I had to battle, a lot of mental constraints of just, I didn't want to ever feel like I was better than my people. I wanted to be better with my people and better with the kids. And that's what I make known. So
has the relationship with your community changed since you've embarked on this journey?
Yeah, I was always within the community. Like I grew up here. I was always at, the events and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I'd say early on, there was a very few people that really like made it known to believe in me, which looking back, I wasn't really after that to begin with. Like I said, I was after the purpose, the kids, right? It was the kids. It was about the kids and it was about the commitment I made. And so now we're looking 2 years down and everyone's always asking me, how's business going? How's business going? And they always have words of encouragement to me. You're doing good things. Keep it up. You're doing amazing things. Keep it up. And there's a lot of people that even come up to me, like not even young people, like people older than me. And they're like almost forming words of they have appreciation, deep appreciation towards me within their own lives. So they're taking pieces and bits of my advice. And these are people that are, older than me from my community. And it just goes to show that I'm doing good things. At least I'd like to say I'm doing good things. That's what I hope and pray for. But yeah, so it's the response has been good, to say the least.
So do you think people can change their future without healing their past? Or do you think when they change their future, then the past is healed? I'd love to hear your perspective.
I think that's a double-edged sword. The way I view it is, and I'll tie into the book again because the book pretty much explains it all. So Joe Dispenza, he talks about when you're constantly repeating to yourself the same thoughts, the same patterns, the same habits, you're operating the same everything, single thing every single day, right? The way you eat your breakfast, what you eat for breakfast, the same coffee you drink, right? How much cream and sugar you have in it. And so I'm looking at all the tangibles here, right? I'm looking at all the tangibles and intangibles here. And in order to change who you are, you have to recognize who you are. Like you have to become aware. You have to open up that lens. It's pretty much opening up Pandora's box, and there is no going back from that. And so I do strongly feel that we are a representation of our decisions, our habits, and our delusional self-belief. And so I do strongly believe that you have to shed that old identity because there's no room. It's like having a full cup and there's no room to add anything in, right? And so I had to tell myself, okay, we're not the scared person anymore. We're not the limited person anymore. We don't make these diet choices anymore. I shed out all the old skin. Difficult, very, very difficult. There's a lot of times where I wanted to take a step back and be conformed to the old identity, right? It's easy to go back to the same patterns, the same ways of thinking, the same habits, the same dietary choices, the same thoughts. It's easy. It's very easy. The easy thing is not what changes your life. And so I strongly do believe that you have to become aware of your identity. And a lot of people don't want to become aware. They don't want to look in the mirror. They don't want to make that call, right? It's on you. They don't want to look in the mirror and say, it's on you. This is who we are. We're fed up, right? We're exhausted from this identity. Let's shed it. Let's create a new one. And so some people will say, shed the old one and create the new one. And then there's the other half. And I think this is the part, I think I kind of stepped into both puddles. If you just do so much of work and so much volume of the new identity, well, it's almost like natural. It's like natural law that the old identity is like, just kind of like disappears and flakes off. And so I think there's two different ways you can go about it. And then this even goes with the the diseases. And so within the book, he talks about, these people, when they get diagnosed at the doctor, because we hold doctors to such a high profile, right? If we hold them to such a high profile, then they have internal power within us, right? And so Dr. Joe says, is it then the pill that they give us that heals us, or is it our belief in the pill that heals us? That's literally what he says. And so a lot of people that get diagnoses, the doc says, okay, you got terminal 4, stage 4, this is how long you have left to live. The patient sits there, and because he holds the doc to such high regard, he accepts that. He conforms to that identity that the doctor placed upon him. And so in Joe Dispenza's book, he says, these people almost are feeding into their diseases, their conditions, their limitations. And so he says, they basically went through this process of getting them off of those, like literally like just doing like a full 180 and saying, operating as if they were healed, like the healed individual. Yeah. And in turn, the tumors pretty much disappear. The disease becomes non-existent in the body. And so I think there's definitely two puddles there you can jump in, but that's just my take, right? And like I said, take everything I say with a grain of salt. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. I heard recently somebody said this, and it really resonated with me, and it felt very applicable, that when you receive a diagnosis, it's like a spell. And a spell is placed upon you. And that just really hit home. There's been a few times in my life that one time I had received a diagnosis in error.
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't even me. It was a different person. The thing got put into my file. And I was like, oh, that's such a good way of looking at it. Because if you accept that diagnosis, it really does become like a spell on your life.
No, it does. And as individuals, we're trained to be conformed individuals. Like society has trained us to be conformed, right? This is what's happening on the news. This is the new shoe that's out. This is the new flavor of this drink. And they're just throwing these things at you and you become conformed. It's like the diagnosis, right? We accept that what they are saying to be the truth. And as soon as you accept that and basically like just emotionally detach and say, okay, what they said is the truth, and your body's going to start, putting it together in different ways, and unhealthy, abnormal ways. And then what is that? That's a training ground for disease, right? And so it's almost like giving up your power, right?
Yeah.
Whole time we have the ability to, do anything we set our minds to, and the power is all within.
Tell me what you are creating right now that you're excited about.
Yeah, there's too many things to count, honestly. Like if like you ask anyone that knows me, Lex is always on his laptop. Lex is always, on the phone. And I mean, I'm young. I'm ambitious. I'm young. I'm youthful. I have more energy than I've ever had in my life just because I fixed the dietary choices. So I'm like on go mode. I'm like, okay, let's go. So, one of the things that's on the back burner right now is my clothing brand, Indigenously. I'm kind of working on a fall-summer drop or fall-winter drop, and kind of just putting some pieces together for that. And that's more so of a hobby for me now. Like I just do that straight as a hobby. And then my wholesale business, we're trying to secure, I think we're going to secure, hopefully, orange shirts for a couple organizations within Alberta and Canada. Just kind of in talks with them right now. So it's like a procurement business.
Yeah.
And then I'm working, developing my software for communities across Canada. So it's pretty much done. We're just having meetings now with nations, trying to go about the implementation plans and taking the next steps and making sure, the nation's happy with the way their platform looks. And then the app that I've been working on for, it's honestly been like 5, 6 months in the making. When we first thought of it, the concept, and it's just been a crazy volume and amount of work and mental stress. Like coding and developing, it's mental stress, especially if you're like a one-man team, right? I'm just sitting there on my laptop every day in, day out, troubleshooting, firing, at the errors, and yeah, it's really mental strain. But honestly, I find joy in the hard work. I find joy when I lay there at the end of the day and I'm like, okay, we worked hard today. We left it on the line. And so those are just 4 projects I'm working on. And then I actually am working on a 5th project with actually my little cousin. So he's going to step into the business world, and we're gonna see where he goes with it. So kind of mentoring him with that, and we're co-creating this other business. So those are just few things I'm working on. And also one of the things that crossed my mind was I want to start, I kind of put it on halt a little, but I want to publish a book by the time I'm 25. Not necessarily a book of, you know, this is how you live life, but a book about like belief, like delusional self-belief,
Yeah.
and how it falls into your life. But that's kind of on the back burner right now as well. But there's just a bunch of things I'm working on right now, just strings pulling me. Like I'm going to Winnipeg next month. I just found out I'm going to Winnipeg next month to speak at this youth event, speaking at a few events in September, and going on another Europe trip in September. So
Okay. Whereabouts are you going?
So the plan is we're going to fly into Barcelona, Spain, and then France might be a part of the itinerary. But right now it's Barcelona, Spain. We're going to go back to Interlaken, Switzerland. So
Yeah.
we're going to go back there, visit Interlaken during, the late summer season, so I could finally see, the green grass, the blue waterfalls. And then I think we're going to end the trip. I think we're going Venice, Rome, and probably the coast. So kind of got quite the trip, but I love the train culture of Europe, and I love the food. I love the people. I just love the whole environment. It feels like when I was out there the first time, it felt like my mind just new neural pathways just started firing off in every direction. I'm like, I came back a different person, and that's what everyone says on their first solo trip. You come back a different person.
Yeah, I think also like to go back to some of those cultures that are so old,
Mm-hmm.
then you come back to Canada and you realize, oh, it w- just the infrastructures, the buildings, everything that they experience over there has been built to last and has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little different here. So tell me, um, so if I was a 15-year-old kid on a reserve that
Mm-hmm.
feels trapped right
Mm-hmm.
now, what would you say to me?
I'd say don't hang your head low. Look up.
Uh-huh.
The big man's always there. You got to grab his hand. He has it. He's reaching down at you. You got to grab it. And delusional self-belief goes a long way. Make a commitment every single day to be better, right? Not necessarily better than the world or better than people, better than yourself, right? What does that look like? If you strive to be, more abundant iteration of yourself on a daily basis, right? That goes a long way after, like I said, transformational journey here. 2 years ago, I did not talk like this. I did not speak like this. I didn't have these skills, these tendencies, these habits. So I tell the kid, you got to believe in yourself first and foremost. You got to believe in yourself because no one is going to do it for you, and no one can believe in you. Like people can say, I believe in you, but that doesn't do anything for your internal dialogue. You have to first believe that a possibility can happen. If you don't first then believe, you've already lost the game. You've already killed the dream before it ever came into the 3D world. And so you got to first believe. Number 2, you got to make a game plan, right? Write it down. It's so easy to try to like muster up a game plan up here, and then you start going down these rabbit holes. Then you get overwhelmed, and then you crash out, and then you go back to your phone or the game. So number 1, delusional self-belief, very, very important. You need that with anything, especially if you're going to be the exception in your family, right? The person who's not an addict, the person who goes after their dreams, who travels, right? Who wants to experience life, right? Not just react to life and live in that survival state. Number 2, the game plan. You have to have a plan, or at least a clear sense of direction, right? And how do you get that direction? Well, you got to try things. You have to step into the field. How would you know what you want to do if you only try 10 things and you don't want to do any of those 10 things? Try 100 things, right? Try 200 things, try 300 things. Time is your most valuable asset. And if you're 15 and young, you have all the time in the world to try things and fail. And then number 3, I'd say you have to have a convictional dedication to it. Like every single day it has to become that thing and only that thing. And people are going to call you crazy. People are going to call you delusional. People might even call you self-centered and arrogant. But I read this quote and he says, you say I'm so full of myself, but who would you rather me to be full of, right? Like, I'm here to like experience life and try to make life as joyful as I can and serve, right? Why would I be focused on him or her or them, right? So those three are really big. And delusional self-belief, write down the game plan, and then the convictional determination in your goal, in the pursuit, and that focus, that energy, it'll bring your dream to life.
What are you most proud of about yourself?
Proud of myself. That's a tricky question to answer. I struggle a lot. Like, it doesn't seem like it on camera. I struggle a lot with being not necessarily grateful. Like, I'm grateful for everything in my life. I give thanks for every new day and everything, right? Where there's trial and error. But it's very, very hard for me to wipe the dust off my shoulders and say, we're doing good. We're doing a good job. It's always those exceptional, perfectionist standards. And so for me, it's hard. It's very, very hard to be proud of myself because it almost feels like an obligation. Like, I have to do this. And then when I'm done the said task, it's like, okay, the next task. Let's get the next task done. And then when everyone's applauding and stuff, it's like, thanks. But for me, it had to be done. And so it's very, very hard for me. And I'm working on it now to celebrate the wins, right? And there's a lot of wins, right? There's things that I prayed for 2 years ago that are happening now, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd say if I was to pinpoint it on something, I'd say I'm proud that I didn't quit. And that's probably the number one thing for me. If I could talk to like 12-year-old Lex, I think that's what he probably would say to me if he looked at my life. Like, I'm proud we didn't quit, right? There was moments where I could have quit. There's moments when I wanted to quit, right? With the anxiety, the depression, right? I didn't want to be here anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I there's no way out. There was no way out. And then not only that, when I first started 2 years ago and I got nowhere with it for like 7 months, and it was just showing up every single day and I was getting no results and I felt like a failure in my eyes. And I was like, is this even going to work? You know, you question yourself. And then when I moved to Toronto last year, and then I had to move back, like I made the decision to move back. And even that, when I moved back, I felt like I was taking 10 steps backwards. And even in that moment, I felt like a failure. And I went through this season of imposter syndrome. Like, I really was in a state where I was like, okay, am I even who I say I am? Like, I started questioning my own self-belief, my own delusional belief. And so the one thing that's stood out through every moment, and it's something I repeat to myself when I go through the dark times and I do go through the challenging episodes and boulders in the path, is can't quit. The only way we fail is if we quit, right? We're gonna fail, or we're gonna learn, we're gonna adapt, we're gonna adjust. We might fall short, but as long as we get up, tie our shoes again, continue walking up that road, right? We're gonna get there. And by there, I don't mean in the destination. I mean, we're gonna get there in terms of the type of person who does what he says he's gonna do, who has character, right? Who is determined, who doesn't lie to himself, who makes positive choices for himself and the others around him, and who does good things in this world. So I'd have to pinpoint it on, I'm just proud I didn't quit, right? Like, public speaking engagements, like, you know, the dollars accumulated, like, it's just, none of it phases me. It's just the fact that I didn't quit. And that's what really, like, when I'm listening to music and I'm on the way, you know, to run track or something, that's the one thing that really gets me going. It's because I'm not like, it's not some BS when I'm saying we didn't quit, right? It's not like I'm saying a lie in the mirror. It's like, no, I bared witness every single day, every moment when my mind was telling me we're not good enough, we can't figure this out, we're not skilled enough, we're going to fail, it's not going to work out. I just didn't quit. And so in hindsight now, I look back and every single day added up. It's a compound effect. It all added up. And every single day I didn't quit. Every single day I just trudged on. I just bared witness to the fact that I'm not a quitter. And that's what I want, the kids to understand is just can't quit. And it'll come to life, but you also gotta, study, analyze, and execute at a more proficient and higher level each time. But just the fact that I didn't quit, that's really makes me smile. And the fact that I don't think I can quit. I don't think quitting exists up here. Like, what even is that, right?
Well, I will tell you, Alexei, I am almost 53 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard a lot of different entrepreneurial advice. I've heard a lot of different speakers in my life. I've always had my own businesses. I've always quested after information, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, I will tell you that I don't know if I've ever heard anything more poignant than I've heard from you right now about the reality of it. And I think that this isn't just for young people. This isn't just a conversation. This is what you are talking about will serve anyone. And if you're like me, 53, going, okay, how can I hone in on this? How can I get better? How can I, um, you know, what's something that I can do?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you, y- y- you put it into words what I think is relevant to any age group, any business group. Um, and it really embodies the spirit of entrepreneurship
Mm-hmm.
and so much more. Just, everything that you talked about, some of those spiritual principles that you talked about, I think would serve us all on a daily basis. And those habits and, um, yeah, this whole conversation has been so, when you talked about your grandma telling you or talking about just bringing in that light and being that light, I,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, you are doing that and you can be proud of that. And as as someone who just briefly, for a brief moment, saw you,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was able to recognize immediately that you were that, bringing that to the world. And I just think it's an honor to have you on here talking to us.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Yeah,
Like I said, never did one of these before, so it's very good to just break the ice on my first one and then just get it out there and kind of go more into depth. A lot of the videos I talk about, they're like 30 to 60 seconds, and then if I'm not on the video, the only way you can most likely hear me speak is at an event. So,
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, it's really good talk. I like transmitting the message as best as I can to the best of my abilities and giving my pieces of advice to the audience, right? And like you said, it transcends just kids. And I'm
yeah,
coming to find out more that it does. Like a 67-year-old lady messaged me like a couple weeks back. She's from Texas. And she was like, I'm 60, but what you're saying makes so much sense. And,
mhm,
I want to start making healthy choices and building healthy habits. I'm like, I sat there and I was just in a moment of, okay, this is doing something. This is really doing something, and it's doing something good. So we just got to
yeah,
keep at it, and in due time, you know, we'll pick the apples off the tree, or in other words, we'll reap, or we'll
yeah,
sow the rewards, and the rewards being just the fact that I could say I saw it through. Like I said, for me, it's just
yeah,
none of the other things matter. The clicks, views, like even like engagement. Like obviously I love the engagement. I love when people say, good things and really support it. Obviously it adds a little bit more love to my spirit. But for me, it's just about the fact of committing to something that you set your eyes on. That's what I want the
yeah,
kids to understand. That's what I want the people, I guess, to understand is if you can commit to something, and you could continuously commit to it, well then, possibility will start opening up all around you, right? And most people quit before that possibility variable comes into place, right?
I agree. Is there anything that you haven't got to say or that you would like to say that you have on your heart?
I would say maybe a kid will stumble upon this, right? Maybe a kid stumbles upon this when it comes out. Maybe a kid stumbles upon it maybe a couple years down the road. Um, Maybe a kid stumbles upon it when I'm not here, right? When I make my journey. And so I guess what I would leave you off on is you just got to have faith. So that's all it comes down to. Like, people overcomplicate the process. It's really not that complicated. It's a very simple process. The hard part is dedicating yourself to the process long enough to see change, measurable change in your life. And so to the kids out there watching, or to anyone else out there watching looking for a little beacon of hope, or a strand of light, you just got to have faith. You got to believe in yourself. Got to look up, smile. He's always there. Grab his hand, and you just got to stay the course. And it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And if it was easy, it wouldn't be worthwhile. Like, the reward wouldn't be, as fruitful. And it's going to be very, very difficult. I don't want to sit here in front of this interview or more interviews down the line and say it's easy. It's very, very difficult. And that's why 90% of people never take risks, right? Because it's easy to stay conformed to your old identity, to who you've been raised to be, who you've been conditioned to be, what society told you to be, what your parents told you to be. And take it from me. I was a kid who grew up on the res, had these unhealthy habits, unhealthy diet habits, unhealthy thought patterns. I had these limited ways of thinking. I just shed the skin. I said, that's not who we're going to be, right? No one wakes up every single day and tells me to eat how I eat. No one got me on that plane to Europe when I had to move across country to Toronto last year, right? No one convinced me to get on that plane and move across country. It's probably one of the most difficult things I ever had to do, being out there for a few months, away from my family, isolated. But it all comes down to you, right? Who do you want to be? And once you find out who you want to be, the hard part's over. Now, what are you willing to do to get there? So,
Well, what we'll leave it at that profound statement, Alexei. For everybody listening, you'll be able to contact Alexei through the show notes. We'll have all his social media handles. Is there any place in particular that you would like people to go to be able to find you, Alexei?
I'd say, honestly, like, I try to reply to DMs on every social media. So, but I'm more likely going to be active in like the messenger
Okay.
DMs. So the messenger DMs is really where you can catch me, just because my meta manager is always open on my MacBook. So I'm always just creeping in there every now and then.
Okay. Well, we are going to have your journey and your app and some of the other things that you talked about listed. And we will keep people abreast of what's happening to you, because I predict, just a prediction, but I predict fantastic things for your future, young man.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm praying and rooting for it as well. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time with us today.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.